Hello everybody, it's Tuna. So as you guys know, every league I make a list of all the best league stars that I think are going to be great in the next expansion, and this league is no different. So we have made a list this league of the 10 top league starters that I think are going to be very good in the Lake of Kalandra Expansion, taking into account all the all the changes in the patch notes and things like that. So these are all tried and true, these are all updated, and you can trust every single one on the list here. And I'm pretty sure that as long as you enjoy the playstyle, you're going to have a good time in the expansion to come if you're going to follow one of these build guides. So the first build on this list is going to be my Lightning Strike Champion. This is a guide that I've written up on Maxroll, as well as I've done a video that I released yesterday that you can check out on my channel. It is a very good build. It's going to be able to take you all the way from league start to end game. You can do all Uber bosses, with a pretty good budget. You're going to be able to get through the game. It's not going to be any issue whatsoever. And I've played this build pretty much ever since 3.16. I played it twice on Raider, once on Champion. And I gotta say, it's one of my favorite builds. This league I'm going to be taking a break from this build, playing something else, but it's something that I can really recommend to people. And thanks to the Maxroll guide, I think it's going to be a good way for beginners to also get into the game, to experience this build. And yeah, it's definitely something that I would recommend, and I'd recommend you check out. It's a very good build, definitely worthy of making the list. There's also other variants to the Lightning Strike build. As you can see on the screen, this is Fuzzy Ducky's version of the Lightning Strike. It's played on a Raider. So the main differences between Champion and Raider is that Raider gets access to suppression and ailment avoidance on the Ascendancy itself. Therefore, it's going to be a lot easier as soon as you hit maps to be able to get those caps. Although unlike Champion, it does not have Fortify, so that is the main difference. And in endgame, it scales very well, as long as you're going to be planning on stacking Frenzy charges and things like that. Although I feel like that is quite an expensive way to go about that. But there's definitely benefits to both the Champion and the Raider. So if you consider the both builds, both builds are pretty much on the same level. Though I'm leaning more towards recommending the Champion for just general purposes, as I feel like it's more well-rounded and cheaper in endgame. But the Raider is definitely a very good contender. So if you're torn between the two, I would just keep that in mind, that it's easier to gear your Raider early on. Although in endgame, I think Champion will outscale. The last Lightning Strike variant that I want to recommend is Inko's Lightning Strike Poison. You can find both the video to Inko's build as well as Rutu's POB within the document linked in the video description. And this is also a very good variant of the build. It's something that you can start as Helix as well with Poison, so it's going to have a really smooth time getting to maps and things like that. And the benefit to being Poison is that you have very easy scaling in comparison to Elemental. And on top of that, you're able to use things like the Wasp Nest, as a good unique that you can use early to scale yourself. However, you're going to be very reliant on getting a Pneumatic Dagger to be able to swap to Lightning Strike Poison. Until then, you're going to be playing Helix, so it's got a better league start overall than the Elemental variant. However, it's also a different playstyle and something to consider for the Lightning Strike variant. So that is also a build that I would really highly recommend. Next on the list is Grimrow's Corrupting Fever Glad, as well as Rutu's Corrupting Fever Champion. This is a Fizz dot build. It is going to be using Corrupting Fever to deal damage, and it excels because it has very good clear early on, and it's going to be able to get through maps faster than any other build. It does this because it has Bleed Explosions, and Bleed Explosions feel very good in maps. Overall, it's the best build that you can choose for strictly mapping focused league start. However, its single target is quite low, so that's something to note, that you are going to be struggling early for single target. However, once you overcome that hurdle, the build excels at pretty much everything. It can overcome all of the bosses in the game, and it's a very good build overall. That is highly recommended to be league started if you're looking for a mapping focused league start. Just be blasting as fast as possible, and you get those juicy explodes. So it is definitely a build to consider for this league start if that is a playstyle that you're looking forward to. The next build that I'd like to recommend is the Scourge Ballista Totem Pathfinder. So this is another build that will start with Poison Helix. It has access to Wasp Nest, so it's going to be very good early. And the playstyle is much like any other totem build, although you are having Poison and Prolif as like your main clears. So it's going to be very good to clear maps, and it's going to be very easy to set up as well. And although it's quite reliant on getting a Darkscorn as its main bow for damage, and essentially the Covenant armor piece, so we're not exactly sure how much it's going to cost, because maybe availability of those items or accessibility, things like that are going to determine whether you can swap to Scourge Arrow from from Helix, but I don't think it's too much of an issue since you have so much choice this league with poison builds to play. You can stay Helix, or you can change to Lightning Strike Poison, or alternatively you can also go to Poison Scourge or Ballista. So it's really nice to have those alternatives, and it's something that you can consider, you know, if you're having trouble swapping from one build to the other and want to try different builds. The last build on the Poison family that I'd like to recommend is the Poison Concoction Pathfinder. This is a very good build for beginners and experienced players alike. It is one of the most chill builds to level through the campaign, as well as being one of the easiest builds for people to get into the game with, and can also scale into endgame, as you see here, Simulacrum Wave 30 showcase. The build is, you know, it's well-rounded and it's very fun and very strong, and it's something that, you know, you can't pass up putting on your list of best league starters, as it's very recommendable, and it's a very strong build for people that want to get into the game and want to learn about the game and poison scaling, as well as having the option to then reroll to the other variants of poison builds that I've also recommended in this video. It's something that I had to just include, so yeah, there it is. The Poison Concoction Pathfinder is definitely one of the best builds that you can choose, and on top of that there's a new great Maxroll guide that's written up that you can check out in the video description. All the links will be there, so yeah, that is a very good option and it's highly recommended. Next on the list is the Explosive Arrow Elementalist. This is also a Ballista build, and it's a build that I developed back in 3.17, I believe, yeah, back pre-3.17. It's a very good league starter, and it's a very strong build that I would highly recommend for anyone that wants to, you know, have a build that can take them all the way from the start into, you know, maybe uber bosses or whatever you'd like to tackle. The damage has been nerfed by about 20%, but is still extremely strong, and it's something that I can't pass up recommending. On top of the fact that we have Palstron that made a very fantastic guide both on Maxroll and on YouTube that you can follow for this league's variant. You know, if anything's changed, you can make sure, you know, to check out those videos. And yeah, it is a very highly recommended build. I think it's still one of the strongest builds to league start, and it has very good clear because of Ignite prolifs. Defensively it does quite well because it uses defensive auras and also scales base defenses like armor and evasion and molten shell. And yeah, it has no problem tackling any of the ending game content as well as any of the mapping content. It scales very well into endgame. It's highly recommended. So if you're into Ignite builds, and if you're into Prolif and things like that, it's a very good build. Next on the list, it is the Boneshatter Slayer. This was a build that was originally designed by Karn, and is something that he has used in previous races through the Gauntlet and things like that. It's a very tanky build, and it's very easy to put together with SSF gear. It's very fast on league start as well, so you can expect to get yourself from Twilight Strand all the way into maps, all the way up to the Eldritch bosses quite efficiently and quite fast. It doesn't require much gear, you're not reliant on the market, you can make everything yourself, especially now with Harvest being able to be used in the hideout. I can expect people to be making gear much easier for things like this, and yeah, it's a build that I could not pass up putting on the list, because as well as on top of it being tested extensively by Karn and other members of the community on YouTube and on Twitch. Tripolar Bear has written a fantastic guide and also recorded a fantastic video detailing everything that you need to know about the build. So make sure to check that out both on Tripolar Bear's YouTube and on Maxroll alike. And it's something that I could not pass up putting on this list. It's very highly recommended for me. The only caveat to this build is that essentially you're going to be needing to put a lot of care and a lot of patience into the gearing to be able to take on all of the bosses, to do all of the content. Although it is very good in early mapping and is a fantastic build for mapping in general. So if you just want to be mapping and you want to be playing that Giga Chad melee type variant of build, this is the build for you, and something that I really highly recommend to check out. So next up on the list, it is Garotha's Spark Inquisitor. This build is a very good self-cast Spark build. It is an Inquisitor as well, so it's going to be able to make use of the regen and a lot of the defenses you gain from being Inquisitor, as well as easy cap for critical strike chance. On top of that, it is an SSF friendly build. You do not need any insane gear to get this going, and you can on top of that use Spark from very early in the campaign and level all the way through to maps and to endgame. Garotha was able to take this to kill all the bosses in HCSSF aside for the Feared. So it is, you know, it is proven to be a very strong build and very good for both Trade League and Softcore and Hardcore alike. On top of that, Garotha provided a very extensive and very in-depth build guide, as well as a POP, detailing everything you need to know about the build. It is foolproof, and it is very good to be able to take Garotha's advice on that, because he's a fantastic player and a fantastic build maker. So yeah, I could not pass up putting this build on the list, and it is definitely one to check out if you're into self-cast playstyle, Spark, or Inquisitor. The Maw of Mischief Elementalist is another build that I would highly recommend for this league launch. It is an item that you can acquire through divination cards that basically enables you to explode your minions, and effectively dealing a lot of damage through ignites. And on top of that, being an ignite build, it is it's going to have very good clear because of its proliferation. It is not the fastest build, and it does have some sort of like clunkiness issues. However, the single target makes up for that. The single target is quite insane, and on top of that, the budget should be very, very low, considering that the divination cards are quite common, and can be self-farmed through SSF means or anything like that. So what this build excels at is definitely bossing. So you're gonna get to a boss and it deals very, very massive ignites on a budget, and what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to like league start it as potentially Armageddon brand or any sort of other ignite build to be able to then re-roll into the Maw once you do acquire it. If you're on Trade League, you just farm up some currency in early maps, and then as soon as the cards stop popping up, you buy the cards. And yeah, it is something that I highly recommend. I tested it myself. I do not particularly enjoy the playstyle. However, I do recognize that it's extremely strong. It is something as well that Ventura has been testing with, in the previous league. He has played extensively all the way into endgame, has farmed many Uber Mavens with it. So it is definitely a build to check out. The last build that I'd like to recommend is Pox's RF Inquisitor. This was the most popular build in 3.18 and is going to remain being one of the most popular builds, I believe, because it is quite easy to follow and it is a very, very strong contender for being one of the best builds in the game. That is a lot to do also with the fact that Pox has put a lot of care into creating both a wiki as well as a very in-depth guide for this build. So it's very accessible for anyone that's wanting to start playing something like this, as well as it being a very comfortable build to play. It's quite like a running simulator type of gameplay. It is excelled, at getting people to play for a league long and investing into the characters. Pox has taken this to 100, and has also been playing this extensively for many leagues. It's something that I definitely could not pass up on recommending. It got slightly nerfed this league with the changes to the traps and things like that. So Flame Trap not having that more multiplier that it used to have, although it's about a 20% nerf there, but it's not too much of an issue because you're going to be able to make that up elsewhere, and it's something that's very highly recommendable, something that I would like to really stress to the new players if they want to have a build that excels from both the very beginning to the end. This is a build that I would recommend, and yeah, make sure to check out Pox and all the creators in this video. They all provided very good build guides and are all very, very good.